9 minutes gone past. We're getting to 10 minutes past the hour of 11 o'clock. It's time for our final conversation right here on Hello Port Harcourt. And I have, for the very first time in a long time, a very long time, I have two ladies in the studio. And not one of them is Casey, who's going to bite my head off or say something very bad about me. So it's good to have good people in the studio joining me this morning for our final conversation. And don't forget, you can follow us on social media at Nigeriainfo, at Nigeriainfo, to join the conversation. Follow, get all the trends, get all the latest reports. And then don't forget, just basically join the conversation. So today we'll be talking about mental health, and I have joining me in the studio Dr. Valeria Ugu. Dr. Valeria, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
Fine.
Okay. Now, are you a TV show type of person or a movie type of person?
A movie.
Movie. So you never saw Game of Thrones, did you?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
You know the reason why your name struck me is because in old Valeria. Yeah, in old Valeria, that's where the dragons came from. So I was like, any chance, this? Do you think you have dragon's blood in you by chance?
No.
Not a single drop.
Definitely not.
Okay, all right, too bad, because it'd be really cool to have a dragon, dragon blood. Anyway, and then joining me my far right, to my far right is Rotarian Veronique, with the French Veronique Tabai. Noel.
Good morning.
Oh wow, she took the good morning right back at my face. Oh, people. Now I said Noah because Tabai is actually Izon or Ijo, so I was curious. I actually asked her off the microphone where she's from. Anyway, so Veronique, it's good to have you join us. So I'm safe to assume that just like me, your Ijo is very poor.
My joy is by marriage.
Oh, by marriage, not by birth.
Yeah.
Nice guy. Once again, plantain rules. Look at what plantain can do. Can get you beautiful women. Don't I keep telling you guys, eat plantain, eat bola and fish, and your life gets better. Look at that now. She's been caught by plantain. Here we are talking about it. Anywho, so basically, it's all about mental health day, and we're going to talk. We're going to start a conversation with you because, interestingly, my first conversation today had to do with workspace dynamic, and I asked the question earlier on: how friendly should you be at work? But we're getting more literal and probably more health-based this morning. Let's start with you, Dr. Valeria. What exactly is the big deal these days with mental health? And we do know that Mental Health Day is a few days from now.
Yeah, October 10th.
Oh, October 10th. So what exactly, how would you describe my mental health? Sometimes I think I'm okay, but I don't know.
Okay, we're going to be celebrating a World Mental Health Day, 10th of October.
Okay.
It's been on since 1992. They keep celebrating it, every day. Then it's an international day where there's global mental health education, as well as advocacy against social stigma towards mental illness and mentally ill persons.
Now, when you make mention of social stigma, I think none more so is evident than in our own country, where it's not too far-fetched to walk down almost any street in any state and find somebody and people go, that person blessed, no mad, or and a lot of times those individuals are attributed to be in that state because of some spiritual problems. But apparently, medicine says it's not spiritual. It is a psychological issue, a mental health breakdown. And the question is, if it is, why haven't we been able to help them?
Okay, first, they don't have insight. People are not aware. So that's part of, one of the reasons why we're doing this awareness. We need to get people to understand that the mental health or psychological disorders and illnesses that occur are not spiritual like they think it is. Some people feel it's someone from the village people. Always the village people. Always. That have sent one arrow or the other. But then they forget that there were things that led to this. There are predisposing factors. There are things that have happened
such as?
Around the individual. Like some individuals during their early childhood have been exposed to various kinds of abuse, physical, psychological, emotional, sexual abuse. Some of these predispose them to some of developing some of these mental illnesses. Now, some may have a positive family history of these mental illnesses, and then when faced with major challenges, they tend to break down. And then substance
abuse.
Oh, yes. People think Igbo is now so common. Everybody puts it in one thing or the other, either in their drink or while baking cakes or even rice and stuff like
you're talking about cannabis?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's locally called
Igbo. Yeah, I see. I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Says who?
Hey, Valerie!
Okay.
Please.
So, exposure to these psychoactive substances have a way of also breaking down one's psychological and mental health. One of the reasons also that a number of individuals are predisposed to this mental health breakdowns are stress, either from relationships, sustained psychological stress from toxic relationships could also predispose them
to breakdowns.
To the mental health breakdown.
Okay, all right. So in 2 days' time, on the 10th of October, it's all about trying to raise awareness about mental health and particularly the stigma that comes with cases like that. Now, let's narrow it down. And I think we'll come to Veronique shortly after I get to speak to you. Let's narrow it down to the workspace. Now, a lot of people feel pressured at work. You just say stress, right? If you remember, I'm sure everybody remembers this story happening in Nigeria a few years ago. I think just after the lockdown, during the lockdown, that year was a very weird year for Nigerians as we were recording a lot of suicide attempts, and then obviously some suicides. The most famous has to be the lady who just gets onto the third mainland bridge, gets down from her car and ups to daisy, she's gone. She apparently had everything going for her. Not many people in Nigeria have cars or a driver, but she did. He did. The other person who did as well. So the question is, what exactly should be our relationship at work? How can we even help? If I'm honestly talking, when I look around some of the colleagues I have, I can't actually tell if they are well, because they come to work, they dress nice, they have nice perfumes. Some of them are stingy, they don't bring food anyway. But I can't really tell how well they are.
Okay, this year's theme is actually focusing on mental health, prioritizing mental health in the workplace. Yeah, having a safe and healthy work environment is a protective factor for one's mental health. Now, there are so many things that could make the workplace unhealthy. Now, we have cases where there's stigma towards individuals based on their disabilities or chronic form of illnesses, such as those that have epilepsy and some other chronic illnesses. Then we also have discrimination that occurs in workplaces, either due to social strata or tribal, discriminations.
Okay.
So we have some of that, and you get people forming cliques and leaving some others out of these cliques. We also have situations where there are poor working conditions. Especially in Nigeria, no light, no water. In places where you need constant light, you need water.
Power.
Their tools for working are not available. Individuals are exposed to various kinds of risk in their places of work.
If I didn't know better, I'd probably say you're probably talking about some of the hospitals that you and your colleagues work in. Look at that.
It's not just the hospitals. It's not just the hospitals. And then we also have situations of harassment. Now, it could be physical assault from superiors to subordinates. There could be use of derogatory language. While addressing subordinates. Trying to correct subordinates. Then you could also have situations of sexual harassment. It could be from the female boss to the male subordinates, from the male boss to the female subordinates. Now, most of these create the pressure, psychological pressure people face at work. Now, some people are actually overstressed. They're giving the unreasonable
Little
working hours,
yeah.
which now makes some of them deviate to using substance to be able to cope with the work pressure. So some of these are factors that make the workplace unhealthy. Now, everybody has a role to play. The government has a role to play, and organizations to provide the right policies that will promote mental health in the workplace. The employers themselves also have a role to play. Like they could send their managers for trainings, to be able to recognize some of these stressors in their workplaces and address them accordingly. Then again, individuals have to find better coping mechanisms to be able to withstand their stress.
Now, when you talk about coping mechanisms, I'm going to come to Veronique here now, because Veronique, Rotarian Veronique, obviously that name probably gives it the prefix title of it gives it away, from the Rotary Club here in Port Harcourt. Now, as an advocacy group, right? Obviously working with doctors, she mentioned that one of the stressors has to be, toxic working environment, particularly when it comes to subordinates, and their superior engagement. Now, as you go around, have you engaged with some of these people? How easy is it for you to tell a boss or an owner of a company, a bakery, a petrol station, or whatever? How do you get to tell the person, be nicer to your staff? How do you do that?
Okay. Being an international organization, mental health is something very recent for us because we only started really getting into it last year in 2023, when we realized that we needed to be okay mentally and emotionally to actually function properly. And so we're talking about it a lot more than we used to, because one of our areas of focus is actually disease prevention and treatment. So mental health is actually a disease.
Now. The mental health disease as well.
We talk about it. So some of the things that we do is we organize seminars and trainings where we get professionals to talk to people from different walks of life. So in answering your question about how can you communicate to an employer or a supervisor, as the case may be, on how to better treat your employees for better productivity anyway, is to actually include it as a topic in one of these character building workshops, trainings, seminars. So the more we talk about it, the more people understand that, okay, probably always looking down on this person is not the right way. I should probably try a different approach. So when you have a lot more opportunity to talk about it, I'm very sure employers will get better. Yes.
Now, it's easy. I like to maybe I'll stick my head out and say assume. It's easy to assume that, yes, in structured organization that could work. You have a symposium and seminar, and I believe we'll talk about the seminar coming up shortly, and get them to listen. But from a day-to-day perspective as a Nigerian, I'm sure you have seen scenarios where, the mechanic is yelling at his apprentice. Emeka, you dey crazy, put this thing where next thing is spanners, flown through the air, and then, Emeka is lying down on the ground, The man probably means well, but he probably doesn't know that his actions are probably causing the young apprentice, stress. And then, I'm scared of mechanics. I don't know about you. I love mechanics, don't get me wrong. But I'm wondering, how am I going to meet a mechanic who's probably 6'4", has big bulging muscles, and tell him, oh God, this thing when they do, good to your Emeka brother. I'm scared, really.
The thing is, practice makes perfect. It's never easy because we've been used to doing things in a particular way. The typical Nigerian believes you need to shout, you need to scream, you need to break some things to get attention. But if you sit back and realize that while you're shouting and screaming, the person you're talking to is not listening. But if you calm down and get that person's attention and actually communicate, you might actually get that job you wanted in half the time.
All right. I like this. All right. So, to all you mechanics, stop throwing spanners. All right. We'll take a quick break. We have the headline news coming up, and then we'd like to engage with you, the listener. We'll open the phone lines. We'll have the good doctor tell us a little bit more about the Mental Health Day and how it's going to be marked here in Port Harcourt right after this break. Once again, please stop throwing spoons. On News 92.3 Nigeriainfo. My name is Jude Omamigbe. Good morning. On headline news, police yet to comply with presidential directive to secure Rivers Council Secretariat as relative calm returns. Stakeholders call for investigation into burning of council secretaries. Governor Fubara reveals plan to arrest supporters to swear in new commissioners. National Primary Healthcare Development Agency to begin Mpox vaccination in Rivers, Bayelsa State. In business, CBN committed to stability of Naira. In entertainment, singer Taylor Swift overtakes Rihanna to become world's richest female musician. In sports, Paris Saint-Germain renew interest in Nigerian striker Ademola Lookman. And on the foreign scene, North Korean leader describes Russian president as closest comrade in birthday message. Details in the 12 noon bulletin. To reach the news team, send an SMS or WhatsApp message to 0808-721-7215. 0808-721-7215. My name is Jude Omamigbe. Thank you for listening and good morning.
Are you up to date with ideas for sustainable development?
92.3 Nigeriainfo serves you opportunities
to ask great questions,
contribute solutions,
and transform society for the better.
I'm listening. Are you?
All right, so welcome back. 90.3 Nigeriainfo. It is Hello Port Harcourt, and then we have just a few minutes left with my guest this morning. If you missed our earlier salvos, that's talking about the introductory salvos, I have with me two lovely ladies. One is a medical doctor, the other is a Rotarian Veronique Tabai, I beg your pardon, and Dr. Valeria Ugu joining me. Apologies, ladies. I'm sorry. I'm here to serve. Please don't be angry. All right. Now, speaking of angry, I'm a little bit hungry. And I don't know if hunger is one of the things that could lead to mental health issues. But I find it very relieving to have plantain and fish, bola and fish. I don't know if that will come. Yeah, I can see Dr. Valeria. She's looking at me like, is this man all right? I have plantain very often. It's so important in my life. That over the weekend, my father called me and says, "Hey, we have a bunch of plantain. It just cut down. It just fell from the back, the tree at the back. Come pick it because we're a monster of some sort, And I spent over 2,000 naira to get home, to get the plantain and back. Now, would you consider that a mental health problem if someone needs to have a particular meal to be happy? In my case, it's bola and fish. I don't know, Dr. Valeria, help me out here.
I believe different people have different kinds of happy meals.
A happy meal? I
Yeah,
like that.
there are some people that are ice cream.
Oh,
When they've had ice cream.
you
they're
raised
good.
your hand. That's you, right?
No.
That's you. You like ice
Well,
cream.
for some people, it's, bananas,
okay.
some apples, some
Ew.
bole, like you said.
Yeah. That's really
And then
bad.
some just need any kind of native delicacy and they're good.
So now, would you suggest that maybe that's probably a good way to cope? Because you made mention of stress relievers and coping mechanisms and things like that.
Yeah.
What are the healthy ways people can cope with mental stress?
Okay, first, we try to be active. Loneliness can be a predisposing factor to
I'm
some
not
mental.
lonely.
So, would want to be active, get involved, in your environment, get involved in what's happening in your workplace, church, at home. Communicate with the people around you.
No, if we're focusing on the workplace now, earlier on, before you joined us, some of the respondents, said something like, "Look, the workplace is meant for you to do your work, get your pay, and go home." shouldn't fraternize. Others said, no, you should fraternize. It's a good place for you to release stress. A lot of my colleagues here are not so normal because we're always making noise and shouting. You should see us when we're talking about football. It's madness. But there were a lot of people who said, look, they've had cases where, whilst they were fraternizing, they got burned. And so the workplace should be a place where you go to work, leave work there, and go home and fraternize.
Well, the workplace shouldn't strictly be that way because you spend several hours of the day in that environment. So it should be a place where you deliver your duty, but without the undue psychological stress of having to do this exactly this way, and the pressure of the boss yelling if you don't do it this way, and then nobody to confide in if you're having difficulties trying to carry out one duty or the other. The essence of creating a friendlier environment in the workplace is that if Mr. A cannot successfully carry out this duty due to peculiar challenges he can reach out to Mr. B, and Mr. B might give him great ideas on how to carry out that particular duty. The bottom line is that the duty is carried out.
All right, so that way, being at work is not too much of a stress.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to open the phone lines 017-923-0002, 017-923-0007. You can send your messages to WhatsApp 0809-030-6416, 0809-030-6416. Then at Nigeriainfo, PH at Nigeriainfo, where you're streaming right now. You can follow us and also get to join the conversation. What are your comments? What do you think you want to have the doctor maybe shed a little bit of light on within the next 5 minutes? Now, in lieu of the World Mental Health Day, I do believe there's a scheduled lineup of events coming up. Doctor, do you want to share that for us, please?
Okay. We have an event mapped out for 10th of October precisely, to be starting at 8 a.m. We're going to be having a mental health evaluation, which is free, and that will be happening at the Ebitimi Banigo Auditorium in Uniport. And then after that, there'll be a symposium, there'll be lectures, there'll be a workshop. People get to interact, people get to ask questions, have their questions answered.
Can they maybe have a doctor check and see how stable they are? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's part of the mental health evaluation.
Okay, so people
those that are okay, that don't need further intervention will be told, and then those that require further intervention, further medical intervention will be referred to the appropriate quarters.
Okay, all right. So once again, where's the venue?
The Ebitimi Banigo Auditorium.
Okay, all right. That's
in Uniport.
Yeah, University of Port Harcourt. Okay, all right. Now on Facebook, this is directed at you, Dr. Valeria. This one says, "Good morning. You concerning this mental health issue at work that deals with the kind of stressful job you do at work, and when you don't have an understanding boss, and when the colleagues are not accommodating loneliness at work." That's gotten from Lakaya. So how do you handle when, like he said, the colleagues are not accommodating and you're also lonely at work?
Okay, so he would want to come over to us, and then we get, our psychologist and the doctors also assess him and then help him, because this time around he's the one feeling this way. Okay. So we need to first of all interact with him, know what other challenges might be at the periphery that he's not, talking about. And then we can now advise him appropriately on what to do, how to go about it. We would also have to investigate his workplace to be able to know if what he's saying is exactly how it is in the workplace, or if it's just his own personal assumption of what is happening in his workplace.
All right, now, Veronique, your organization, like they just came on board last year, talking, arranging and making room for symposiums and things like that where people can talk, share, better ways in handling, workplace drama to improve mental health issues and all of that. Now, what would you say is the one support system or one support mechanism that you think groups like yours need to be able to share this kind of message a bit better? it's easy for us to be sat down here, like I gave the example earlier on, and talk about, people who work in offices like ours, maybe all the oil companies and all that. But, to the market woman, to the people who own small supermarkets and the mechanics and, and all the other, informal labor sector, how do we get to those people? What would you say organizations like yours would need to do that?
Okay. Like I said before, I think off air, we are several Rotary clubs, and that is actually one of our major strengths because we're everywhere. We're scattered in over 200 countries around the world. So the good thing is when we pick something and everybody is dealing with that same thing, it has the capacity to travel a whole lot further than even the dream. So to reach different people can become the different focus of different Rotary clubs. Some targets the formal working environment. Other Rotary clubs can target the informal working environment. We do have contact with all kinds of people, so we don't only associate with professionals in formal working environments. We associate with the market women. We go to hospitals. So because it's something that we're dealing with, it now becomes part of our regular campaigns. So if we happen to be doing an outreach in a community, we chip in mental health as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So that way it keeps going round. And some of the things we're doing now, we're producing flyers. Okay. So we'll have those flyers handy to always hand them over to people. And the flyers have contact details of the medical professionals, directing people. So if you have a challenge, don't keep it to yourself, talk to somebody. And then we also can have cases where people meet us and say, this is my problem, what do I do? And because we know, we have that network, we can easily say, oh, these so-and-so Rotary clubs worked with the doctors on this. Where do we go?